Live from your home of very extreme prices, you're listening to Techies Talking Tech Tonight, colloquially known as T4. I'm your host, Trey Comstock, and it is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015. I am joined by Executive Editor Jimmy Principe. Hello, Jimmy.
Hello, Internet, and Trey, I guess, this time.
Hello. So this is the show where we talk about tech, generally at night.
Usually techies.
Usually techies who talk about tech. This is the hard rock, version of the podcast. Yeah, that's why it has the hard rock kind of theme song and the yeah. This is kind of like the reviews and commentary show as opposed to the news.
Yeah, we have all kinds of commentary.
Yes. Like, many people don't understand what screen resolution is, or that when you have a 10-foot video wall, you can't send me a 290 by 160 pixel image and think that I'm going to agree to show that. No. Just no.
I have a hard enough time describing the difference for people between vector and raster graphics.
Yep.
People don't understand what it means, and they're like, "Well, why does this look like crap?" Well, it's because you used raster, because you rasterized the image. Like, what does that mean? It was vector, and you made it rasterized, and then you tried to blow it up, and it looked like shit.
Right. What you could have done is you could have scaled it.
And then printed it.
And then you could put all kinds of great filters on it, because you need to rasterize it if you're going to put a filter on it in Photoshop. But you have to scale it first, not second, or it just turns into a pixel. Turns into my problem, where you have... I drew them the picture and explained to them that these things run at 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080. The image you've given me is this in a sea of this. It's going to look like garbage. Or it's going to be very small.
It's not small. It's very far away.
Right. So if you're going for like a long distance look at this thing, I can explain that to ProPresenter and it will, use it. But yeah, people, the technology... most of these people I'm working with are also millennials, and you kind of look at them and go, we're like the technological generation with the internet and Facebook and digital cameras and smartphones.
We're the ones that are supposed to understand the back end of how this stuff works.
Why does no one? So it's just my Instagrams. They go on the thing. Yeah, great.
That's how that works.
That's how that works. I'm just waiting for someone to send me their Instagram and want to use it as the background.
I actually have no idea what resolution Instagrams are at.
Well, presumably they're it's Facebook, so they're highly compressed.
Well, regardless of actual resolution, they're highly compressed. And I'm gonna look this up. Resolution.
I honestly don't know. It's square.
So if a photo is taken with the Instagram camera, it can reach up to the maximum resolution, which is 2048 by 2048 on most Apple devices. However, if a photo is taken with a regular phone camera, they will be uploaded at a lower resolution of 612 612. Yep. Because there is no God.
Well, no, because it's designed to be viewed on phone screens. And so...
Yeah, most phone screens, even if they are, for example, this phone is wider than, 1080p. It's 1080p, so there's 1080 pixels.
1920 by 1080.
It'll just be smaller on the inside, but whatever, who cares?
Right. But on that, it's going to scale. But on a 10-foot 1080p screen, it's not. You can see every pixel that's the size of your face. Like every pixel, I can really just see the individual pixels. And Photoshop has some solutions for this, obviously, but this is technical knowledge, technical knowledge, just the real basics of tech.
Tickety tech tech.
So Jimmy, what's new with you?
So my new thing is actually your old thing,
Yep,
and that is
literally.
that is the PS Vita.
That's my Vita.
This is quite literally Trey's Vita that
What's
I have
now your Vita?
acquired.
Well, once
I've
I get the
acquired.
Nomad, now it's your Vita.
I don't think that's how that works.
No, it's not. It's already your Vita.
Yeah, this is my Vita. This is still my Nomad.
I get. Uh, yes.
But so anyway, so I have the Vita, and what I've noticed is that I've played. So I put in Infamous Second Son as a game I was going to test to use with the Vita, and it actually works really well. I've really enjoyed my time playing it, and according to Infamous Second Son, I've made more progress on the game since I got my Vita a week ago than I did when I originally bought the game. I was at 17%. I'm now at 37%
Jeez.
complete. Because I mean, I've done very little story missions, but I've done a lot of just running around and doing stuff like random completionist stuff.
So is the screen good enough on the Vita that you can really tell what's going on?
So, yeah, that is probably the biggest ding I have against the Vita, because when you take the Nexus 5 and you put it next to the Vita, the screens are about the same size.
It's 5.3 inches.
Let me turn them on.
The Vita is 5. That Vita is
So,
5.3.
They're about the same size, right? But this screen is a significantly higher resolution.
Yeah, because one of those is 720p and the other is 1080p.
Right, and you can tell, but what I will say is that the screen is good enough that you can follow in general. The one part that I have problems with is if I have to read something. A lot of times the text won't quite come out. But in general, it works pretty well. And what it does is it maps the bumpers. So these are the trigger buttons.
Okay.
It maps the bumpers to here, the bottom corners of the touch screen.
That makes sense.
So for example, I did try to play Destiny. Not anything intense. I was just trying to take out some. I was trying to go through and do a mission. I haven't completely finished the game yet, or the storyline of the game yet. I have a lot of hours in that game, but I was having difficulty because so much of Destiny uses all of the buttons.
Right.
And you can't be clicking the screen when you're in the middle of trying to fight some guys. Like it's just not going to work.
No. Is there an option for the back touch?
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out. It doesn't look like there is, but there may be. I might have to just look online to see if I can find some way to do that. In which case, that would be better.
Right.
But on Infamous Second Son, it's enough. What uses those buttons? Yeah, you need it, but it's not things you're usually using in a like high intensity situation. So because the bumpers have been neglected in a big way on the PlayStation, it makes it so it's not horrible.
Okay.
And playing on my network has been great. So I have a relatively fast network. It's all wireless and like dual bands, it's the best wireless end you can get, basically.
Sure.
And on both bands.
Is the PS4 AC, or is it just N?
I think it's N.
Okay.
I don't think it's AC. And yeah, well, and I think the Vita is N as well.
Well, I know it's N.
So
AC was
it doesn't matter if the PS4 is AC or N. It's hardwired. So my Vita or my PS4, my Xbox One, and most of the stuff that's in my media center is all hardwired, including the Roku. The Roku's hardwired as well. But it works. So it works great. I can play. Last night I played for about an hour and a half while I was watching Netflix, which is kind of the thing that I've always wanted to do. So I was playing my. I used to play my Game Boy while watching Netflix.
Sure.
Now I play my Vita while watching Netflix.
Which is actually your PS4.
Which is actually my PS4. And I'm probably 10 feet away from the actual wireless router. It works pretty well. However, I did also test it out remotely on on a very slow internet connection, the clear hotspot.
Yeah, that's interesting. How well did that go?
So don't do it if you can avoid it. What I'll call that is the airport Wi-Fi test.
Sure.
And whereas here I have a nice solid connection, and only every so often will it give me a little pop up. So it has a little symbol that'll pop up and warn you that you're about to lose connection. And what it does when you lose connection, and that's part of the reason why Infamous Second Son is a better game to play than like Destiny, because when you lose connection, it just pauses it, and then when you regain connection, it opens it right back up at the pause screen. You can unpause it and continue. But I lost connection more often. I could play for usually about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I'd lose connection and I'd have to reconnect. The nice thing is that even if the PS4 is sitting, as long as it's in a rest mode, the Vita can ping it and do basically wake it.
Wow.
And so it'll tell me turning on PS4.
Right.
And then when it turns on, it'll say, okay, it'll take you right out to the main start screen, the home screen on the PS4, and then you select your game and you go on your merry way. I mean, other than that, I haven't actually used. So I played some of the FIFA because I like FIFA. But
so yeah, that's the Vita version of FIFA is pretty good.
Yeah, the Vita FIFA is what's actually in the Vita right now in the slot. But other than that, it's a great device, and it's surprising to me how well it works for the remote play.
Sure. Have you tried the remote play over a decent internet connection?
No, I have not. I have not had an opportunity. It seems like the bigger problem for it is distance to the access point. So it seems like the Vita does not have that good of a Wi-Fi card in it. And so even within my own apartment, there will be times when it'll pop up that little notification just because there's more walls in the way. I'm slightly further away from the hotspot or from the Wi-Fi, and I have really good Wi-Fi. And so I think that the Vita really needs you to be close to the access point.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think that is the primary concern, because the thing to remember is that, yeah, we can have wireless N, but wireless N is at that right next to the access point, and that it decays as the distance gets greater.
Right. That's why dual band and stuff like that makes such a big difference.
Yeah, and so I remember with when we it was just wireless G, how you could be 15 feet away from the stupid thing, and it would be registering that your connection was at like 11 megabit per second.
I've fought with more terrible wireless G hotspots in more strange corners of the world, and it's just sometimes,
And then you realize they're all terrible.
Well, you just remember how frustrating wireless networking used to be, right? Now,
and how frustrating it still kind of is.
Well,
when
so,
it all goes to hell in a handbasket.
So I split my internet between us and our downstairs neighbors, and I have a Netgear AC router, dual band. It's a heck of a router, but for some reason, and we cannot to this day figure out why, one computer that happens to be our neighbor's main laptop could not connect to the Wi-Fi. Could not do it. We tried all kinds of software stuff. I replaced the router that we had with this router that consumes lion's blood to run. It's just replace everything, right? Replaced everything in the system. Couldn't connect to save its life, and we're like, okay, so what do we do? So what I did is I had to run a cable all the way across our apartment, down the stairs into our downstairs neighbor's apartment, and into a wireless router down there. So that basically they have a hardwire connection so that she can take a Ethernet cable and hook directly into that router. And that solved the problem. Great.
Well, hardwiring always solves the problem. It's one of the reasons why my whole media center is all hardwired, because that way I know that it's not a wireless connectivity problem. If anything in there stops connecting to the internet, the first solution is turn off the router and the modem and turn them both back on.
Right. But it's, you know, and we think there is probably actually a problem with that computer. But all that being said, you have no idea. Networking is still sometimes just the ghost of the machine. You don't know what's broken. And I have been networking things since I was 10, right?
Right.
It's this weird life that I lead. I remember setting up a 3-com based networking product that used your home telephone line.
God, that sounds miserable.
To hook it up. And so we had, at that point, we were running 4 PCs in the house. And so each of us had one of these 3-com things, and you could theoretically share a printer, share an internet connection, and share files. And I was running my school's newspaper out of the house at the time. And so I wanted to be able to share files networking rather than having to sneaker net it with floppy disks, right? That made a lot of sense. So I could just have people dump it into a folder on my computer when they finish the articles, like a newspaper. Yeah. Never. I was every time we tried to fire up this network, I was having to reinstall TCP/IP. Every time. I was just constantly having to reconfigure TCP. I guess I was 14 at this point. The only 14-year-old running around his house trying to reinstall TCP/IP to try and get this, and it just never worked. It would never share the broadband connection. It never did anything it was supposed to. And you couldn't really figure out what was wrong. It's just all, and so that's my earliest kind of experiments with networking is these 3-com boxes that quite frankly never worked.
Look, I'm not someone to even look at for this sort of stuff, because my solution to I need to add more stuff to my network was to get a network switch, a business class network switch.
Sure. I mean, we eventually had those kind of things, and we put Wi-Fi in the early 2000s. Wi-Fi B, wireless B, is what we put in.
Wireless B. I think we didn't make the jump to wireless until wireless G had just come out, and we bought the best Linksys router that was on the market. And it's actually the one wireless G router that everyone still is kind of was a good router.
I had that one.
Was the Linksys WWDRT a router?
So, but anyways. The only way you could get Wi-Fi upstairs though is if you were on the side of the house with the window that was shared with the study where the wireless signal was broadcasting from. And so I didn't do my homework in my room, which was on the front of the house. I did my homework in the game room, which was on the back of the house. And so if I wanted to use the internet, I had to pick up my laptop, walk it into my bedroom, and that's the only place I could use the internet in the entire upstairs. We tried all sorts of signal boosters, and none of those ever work, right? Every time I try to use a signal booster, it doesn't work.
Well, they're still trying to figure this out to, signal boost. I saw an article on CNET today about the headline was Startup Eero wants to wipe out weak Wi-Fi.
Well,
by Stephen Shankland.
I mean, the issue really is American houses are very big, right? American suburban houses are very big. And we have solutions for Wi-Fi in large buildings, right? We have these things, I live in a university world where I just have Wi-Fi everywhere I walk.
Right, there's
over this huge campus.
There's Cisco hotspots every 100 feet.
Right, and there's the backbone infrastructure that runs it. It's running on very hardcore networking gear. No one wants to install that in their house. What they want is the $200 to $300 solution of a really nice router and a signal booster that never works. And, quite frankly, it's no surprise that, to a certain extent, Wi-Fi still sucks.
So I kind of glanced through this article on CNET while we were talking, and this startup, their proposal, they're going to sell you for $300 3 routers that are already connected to each other.
Okay.
So the thought being that instead of one powerful, this is a quote from their CEO, instead of one powerful device blasting a signal everywhere, you need to break it up into smaller pieces and distribute it throughout the home.
Yeah, but how do you get the internet connection to
Let's
it?
see.
That's the
Automatic linking.
so they're sending it. They're sending it to each other.
Yeah. The Eero boxes link to each other and automatically tell devices like phones and laptops which particular device to connect to. They use a single network name, so no manual network changes are required. The company considered using powerline networking, but the technology is hampered by modern homes wiring setup. Yep.
Great. Good luck with that. Like, I mean, if it works, great, fantastic.
That's a good idea. And if they can figure out a way to make it so that actually works,
Yeah. Well, hopefully the long-term solution is just 5G, right? That we'll finally get kind of
fast enough where
cellular connectivity fast enough and pervasive enough that the idea of having a home hardline connection is only for the hardcore set. So,
like
the same
us.
way desktop PCs are now, right? Like for most people, you just want to watch Netflix or pornography. It's just all you need is 5G and you're done. For those of us who need to like make content,
Well, 4G is fast enough to run Netflix at this point.
yeah, but it's still not totally reliable.
Right. And therein lies and the fact that you just pay through the nose.
Well, and unfortunately, even if internet gets reclassified as Title II, and so common carrier, mobile's exempt from all of that.
Oh yeah.
And so mobile can continue with data caps and throttling and all of these things and pay prioritization and all of it.
They've gotten dinged on throttling. Basically, where they've gotten dinged on throttling is where they do it and they don't tell you that they're doing it.
Well, as long as they're up front, it's like as long as they tell you they're screwing you, they can screw you.
Basically, like T-Mobile tells me that I get 3 gigs, and then after that, they're going to screw me. And
see,
I say, "Yep, that's fine."
AT&T tells me I have unlimited, but that's unlimited up to, and then I'm throttled, and that's the rough deal. If you call it unlimited, it should be truly unlimited. And I get that you can't actually afford that, but that's the plan I've bought. Is the unlimited. And what, the other thing that drives me crazy about unlimited. Okay, so it's unlimited. Why can't I tether with unlimited? Because they want me to get off the unlimited plan and get on the 10 gigabyte plan with tethering that's more expensive. I get it. But I technically have unlimited data that I can't really tap into.
Yep. That's the nice thing about Verizon. Anything on Verizon has to be I think T-Mobile is the same way too now. I think T-Mobile has some of that federal spectrum, and so they're required to follow the net neutrality laws.
Right. Which is Google that did that, right? Google raised it to a point where the net neutrality laws had to kick in, and so yeah, it's great. And AT&T doesn't have that spectrum.
Yeah, Google bid on it. They didn't win, but it got to the point.
And at some point, I'm just going to need a wireless hotspot, and so I'm going to have to cave on some level and pay for more data.
No, you buy just buy into Verizon's. They have the most reliable network, I
already have a family plan on AT&T.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, or you just flip over to an AT&T 10 gig plan.
Right,
call it a day.
The 10 gig plan on the because we technically have 2 plans because we have 3 phones, 2 plans, a family plan, and then my iPhone unlimited plan, which I just can't let go of. I don't ever use anything more than 2 or 3 gig a month. I just looked at this. I've used 24 gigs since I bought that phone. So 24 gigs since October. So I could probably be fine.
That's pretty decent, actually.
Yeah, well, I push a lot of podcasts. Lot of podcasts.
Yeah, that's true.
Get funneled through. So
mine, the amount I'm using has gotten dinged because T-Mobile added all that. Like, I get music streaming, doesn't count against my cap. I get an equal apportionment of tethering on top. So, like, I have a 3 gig plan. I get 3 gigs of normal stuff and then 3 gigs of tethering. Which is kind of awesome.
T-Mobile is like a company that's trying to compete in a market. AT&T is going like AT&T benefited very early on from locking in all of the early iPhone adopters. And they've just been kind of going to everyone else ever since. Like, they just don't care. And they haven't. Very clearly have not cared. At all. They were the last one to do that kind of like, oh, you can upgrade your device whenever you want. You just pay X amount of money. They're the last ones to do that. It's that they probably still have the worst deal of that group because they don't really care. Because really, all of their money happens because every 2 years, iPhone people renew their iPhones. And that's just what it is. That every 2 years, the people who started out on the iPhone 3G, which is what I did, renew their iPhones. And so it's very easy. And it's a very predictable revenue stream. And so they don't have to care. And now that the network makes calls, which it didn't with the iPhone 3G, admittedly.
And MMS works. Unlike when they announced MMS.
All of these interesting things. The network is functional in a way that it wasn't in the early days of the iPhone when everyone went, oh, they actually use these features. Oh, this is a problem. We
didn't plan for this.
Well, I mean, at some point, it was like the tech industry the tech journalism industry was just not receiving phone calls. Because the AT&T network in San Francisco was fundamentally hosed. And so it just
couldn't handle the burden.
So you'd listen to Buzz Out Loud or any of these kind of tech podcasts, they would just be complaining about how I love my iPhone, but it doesn't make calls. And everyone's like, oh, no one makes calls anymore. Yeah, because for like 2 years you couldn't make calls. And so you just sort of learn to do without them. It's not actually that text messages are better. They are better for some things. Very short form communication, but, talking. Just a really useful feature of phones. As it were. But it's just all this maladapted behavior because, for God's sakes, you could not make a call on AT&T. And even where I was in Williamsburg, Virginia, it was dodgy at times.
Well, and I mean, Houston has always been an area that had strong AT&T coverage.
Which is why I bought into AT&T in the first place.
That's an advantage.
What was it? My Nokia big, beautiful candy bar phone.
Oh,
with the circular base. It was great. That was a heck of a phone. A 1.2 megapixel camera.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Look, that was, incredible at the time.
Yeah, mine didn't have a camera on it.
Oh, yeah. No, I bought... This had video, camera.
Wow.
This was, the smartest phone you could get. It even had a very basic web browser. This was my junior year of high school. I just had to have and it had removable faceplates.
I mean, that's really the important thing.
That is, with this, integration...
Because mine had the removable faceplates, but didn't have the camera.
Right. So this was removable faceplates, and you could drop it 1,000 times, and it didn't matter.
Well, mine has that, too.
But that's something that's been lost in, this try to move to, unified design, Johnny Ive designs, is where are my removable faceplates? Why? To be fair, the new 3DS... the basic one has removable faceplates because the Japanese get it. They understand that you really need Hello Kitty and emojis on the outside of your phone or your game system or whatever. I mean, I put stickers on the back of my MacBook Pro for very similar reasons. I want to be able to customize this thing, and part of it is I want to be able to pry the plastic off and put new plastic on. This is important. These are the big issues of our times. Remember when Xbox 360 had removable faceplates?
Oh yeah, that was early.
The release Xbox 360 had removable faceplates because that was the height of swap out your Nokia phone's removable faceplate. This is 2005, man.
Right, exactly.
When that was it because no one wanted to. I had a Treo because they were very functional and very ugly. And then the idea of having a data plan was why would you pay that much money? Because I really need my email, and I really need to be able to talk on AIM on my phone.
Yep.
And I did. And then I got an iPhone, and I haven't looked back. And then Palm died.
So my closing comment on the PS Vita, where we started.
It wandered a bit.
My closing comment is, and it's actually going to come back around to phones, is that. I really like the Vita, but what I'm really curious about is on the Sony phones, you can get a DualShock 3 controller dock
Yeah.
where the phone will basically sit in this dock that is a DualShock 3 controller. I think that's a better solution. So just buy Sony phones.
I don't know though. I don't know if that's actually a better solution. As an overall package.
As an overall package, no, but
For what you're
for
doing.
remote play, that is a better solution. If you're getting it for remote play, that's a better solution.
Actually, the real solution is get a Sony tablet.
Yeah, the 7-inch tablet.
Yeah, get the 7-inch tablet.
It's a great tablet actually.
Yeah.
Like
it's a great tablet, and it's a bigger screen.
And it's a high res.
Right, and so what I'm looking forward to with Windows 10 is being able to remote play my Xbox One to my Surface Pro 3.
Right.
And so I can sit there in my living room, and since the Surface Pro 3 has the kickstand, I can just set it on the coffee table, play Forza or whatever on that, and then have the main TV be content.
Right. Well, and no, the main argument for this thing is, and it's something that I think we've lost in trying to make phones do everything, is that sometimes I just want a gaming device. Sometimes I want something where when the battery on this dies, I go, well, I guess I can't play games anymore. When the battery on this dies, I go, what the hell am I going to do?
Well, I mean, the other thing is you get those, since it is a dedicated device, you get two things. One, more of the processor is available to game, right? So the games, although that's running a Tegra 3, okay?
Which is a great processor.
A great processor, but it's an old processor at this point, right?
Hey, this is running a Tegra 2.
Right, but my point is it's running a Tegra, I think it's a Tegra 3.
Yeah, I think
or at least that generation of processor. But those games look really good.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about all the ancillary stuff running in the background that a phone needs.
It can also, the other thing about it is it multitasks really well. Yeah. And I can flip back and forth between FIFA Soccer and my PS4 remote play, like, very easily.
Using a Palm OS like a card system.
Yes, actually.
The other thing is, or Weibos rather, the other thing is you get those dedicated buttons, right? So the big problem with phone gaming for a lot of genre of game is the tapping, right? It's just an inelegant control scheme. And so you get those hardware buttons, and you get more of the processor available to do what you want to do. So, I mean, that's the benefit. The downside is phones are just more powerful now than the Vita, and the Vita is locked for 5 years. Basically, it's a console, so it's locked for X amount of time. You can't really change it.
And they probably, it's yet to be seen whether or not they're actually going to rev it.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing with the Vita and why it loses in the long run is it tried to be all-powerful in a device sector that's moving too fast. The 3DS never makes any claims at being all-powerful. It claims at being innovative and doing something totally different that's never competing on hardware specs. Because you can't win that race in the mobile sector. That sector's evolving too quickly. And so whereas the Vita...
because you're competing with phones.
Because you're competing with phones, and that's a $1 trillion market, or whatever it is.
The thing to remember is that when the Vita came out, Sony didn't have any real phones in the smartphone game.
They certainly weren't selling.
If I remember correctly, when the Vita came out, the Sony Xperia phones had not yet been released. Okay. The ones that we saw at CES.
Right.
Did you get the Vita pre-CES or post-CES?
Pre-CES.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because we used it on the way back from CES.
I bought it like the spring before. I bought it the same weekend the iPad 3rd gen came out.
Yeah. Okay, so the Vita predated Sony's big play into the smartphone market. Mm-hmm. So Sony, when they created this device, was not thinking about the smartphone market. They were thinking about mobile gaming and the iteration upon the original PSP, which my brother actually still has his.
It's a decent device. It suffered from piracy like whoa. That's what sunk the PSP.
Oh, is that what the problem was?
You could just
little UMD discs.
Oh no, but you just run it off of memory sticks, and it was too easy to pirate.
It's such a good device though, because like this is very plasticky, but the PSP had like metal and like the build quality on the PSP, man,
Well, and
that was something.
when we first saw the Vita, it was something incredible. It's
It
just
is still something incredible.
yeah, but
It's a little dated.
it's dated. Whereas the 3DS, it doesn't matter what its hardware specs are relative to anything else. Because of its dual screens, because of the types of games that get very specifically developed for it, because of the software library that already exists, because of the 3D-ness, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that it doesn't matter if it has the specs that are competitive. It's not trying to compete technologically with anything that actually exists. It competes only with itself.
Right.
And previous versions of the 3DS.
Well, and Nintendo has always owned the handheld market in a big way, kind of since
there was a handheld market.
Since the Game and Watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to know, but since there was cartridge-based handhelds, Game Boy, Jaguar, or what is whatever, Game Gear, Nomad. Nomad.
That's nasty of the Nomad.
Game Boy Advanced, DS. It's won every generation it's competed in, sales-wise, because they run cheaper than their competitors, and they don't ever try to win the technical race, right? The Game Gear, technically better than the Game Boy. It was bloody color, man. It was color. People used to make, oh, my Game Gear is color, but the Game Boy won out in the end because of software library. It's easy to develop for. It was cheaper. Also, it didn't shoot through batteries quite as quickly.
Yeah, which was the theme.
Right, because it took four AA's as opposed to 6 AA's in the Game Gear. I just busted out an original Game Gear and original Game Boy that I have here at the house.
Yeah, no, I have an original Game Boy, and yeah, I think it's 4 AA's.
It's 4 AA's as opposed to 6, and those AA's lasted, right? I've used it all the way across the Atlantic Ocean once on an airplane, not on a boat, but on an airplane, and it was fine. Whereas the Game Gear, keep your batteries handy, and the Nomad, just give up, abandon all hope, all ye who enter here.
The Nomad, like the boom boxes,
right? I mean, you could run it on battery. You could
10 D-cell batteries, and you could run it for 2 hours.
Right. What the Nomad, we have this analogy. The Nomad is the frag box of the Genesis, right? You don't really need it, right? It's just this stupidly sort of portable thing that doesn't actually accomplish anything. But in not accomplishing anything, it's a beautiful mistake of the industry. And that's actually what I like owning, is the stupid mistakes of the industry. Which brings us to our other topic. Those stupid mistakes of the industry are way too expensive. The used game and the used console market really
is out of control.
Out of control. So in 2010, I got on a kick of wanting to buy up old consoles that I always wanted, and so I bought an NES in decent shape on eBay for like $30, and I got a Super Nintendo, a SNES, for like $35. And
because it was the SNES.
And it's a great system with a wonderful game life. I got the Super Game Boy so that I could play Pokemon on the big screen, which is really important. And so I really got back, and I'd always been kind of a collector. I had a couple Genesises, Game Boys, and so I kind of got back in the collecting market. And things were relatively affordable then, and that we're only talking 5-6 years ago. So now, if you want that quality of Super Nintendo that I bought for $35, $75, I've seen them go for easily. N64 is going for $85, which is the same price as a Game Boy Micro, which is a lot rarer. Like a lot rarer. And original Nintendo title, we were just going through this conversation very recently, original Nintendo titles for the N64, notably, I love it, but not necessarily always a well-regarded system. Its game library is very well-regarded. Your Mario 64, Super Smash Brothers, and GoldenEye, and Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, arguably one of the best games of all time. if not the best game of all time, but certainly one of. You could, there are other arguments to be made for Mario 64. Although it hasn't held up as well.
And here's the thing, Mario 64, as was pointed out to me recently at a games store, how many N64s were sold? That's how many Mario 64s
are out there. And yet it's still going for $40. I
saw one with like totally wrecked, like the sticker was so faded you could barely read it. This was at a game store. They marked it down to $30.
Right.
And I looked at the guy and I said, "Really? $30? You think it's worth that?" He said, "I mean, it's still Mario 64."
Yeah, it is, and it still works. So, GameCube stuff is the one that cracks me up. So, when GameCube came out, you couldn't pay someone to buy a GameCube, right?
No.
It only recently came out that the Wii U is a bigger failure commercially. Again, both of these systems had great games to come out for it. Resident Evil 4 originally came out on the GameCube. I mean, or we got the HD and then the HD re-release of the original Resident Evil, also on the GameCube. Mario Sunshine, arguably a weak entry in that title, but you're talking about Rogue Leader, you're talking about Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is the problem with GameCube prices now. So, as it turns out,
it's specifically Melee is the problem.
Right. So there's a very dedicated fighting game community around Super Smash Bros. Melee. There's a great documentary about it on YouTube called The Smash Brothers. That's kind of details this community, but they're buying up. They need copies of Melee to keep the community going. So my day one release copy of Melee is worth like $50. Which is basically what I paid for it in whatever that was, 2003, 2004, whenever I bought it.
Whenever it came out.
Whenever it came out. And the controllers, too. Like my Wavebird controller, of which I have two of them. I have two. I don't actually understand how that happened. $40. $40. Which is, again, probably what I paid for. Same thing I paid in the early 2000s. It used to be that you could get these used things, and that's how I got so much of this stuff. That's how I have two Wavebirds, because it used to be cheap. You would just troll GameStop and go, "Oh, yeah, no one really wants this GameCube stuff," and just buy it. I have a Game Boy Advanced adapter for the GameCube, and because I got all these things when it was dirt cheap. And now just the used console market is through the roof, and I don't quite understand it.
I mean, I was on the lookout for a Mario Kart game and I had 3 consoles that I could buy it for.
Yep.
N64, GameCube, and the Wii, because the GameCube will work on the Wii.
Right.
Because I have access to an N64 and a Wii. And I called. I've been looking casually for about a month now. I finally called a couple of game stores and said, "All right, I need Mario Kart for either," specifically used game stores, "for one of these 3 systems." I said, "Here, let me check." And finally, one of them was like, "We only have it for the Wii." And I said, "Dare I ask how much it is?" They said, "It's $35.
It's not crazy.
I said, "All right, fine." But like, that's for the Wii. Like, this is crazy.
Well, I mean, I just paid $30 for Mario Party 8 for the Wii, the first Mario Party game that came out on the Wii. I think some of it is Nintendo, right? Nintendo stuff specifically holds its value in a very special way that Sega,
because nostalgia.
Because the equivalent Sega doesn't. So let's look at the 32-64-bit era, that kind of mid-90s. Original PlayStation, $20-$30.
Yeah, you can get them cheap.
Sega Saturn, $30. N64, $84.
I can get a PS2 for cheaper than that.
Well, yeah, of course you can. You get a new PS2 for cheaper than that.
No, I can get PS2.
So, okay, let's look at the next generation up. Your PS2, Xbox, GameCube. Xbox, $40. I paid $80 for mine years ago. $40. PS2, since there were about 1 billion of them sold, they can't be more than what, $35-$40.
Okay, I can buy it now bundled with a slim console. That's a slim console. I'm not really interested.
Just give me a price.
This one has one bid for $13.
Right. Again, not
all the buy it now people seem to think it's worth $60.
Which they're wrong.
But all of the bidding people seem to think it's worth $20.
Sure. So yeah, you're probably at like $35-$40. GameCube, $50. Some of it is that I think it is the Nintendo stuff has the collectability that everything else doesn't right now. Certainly Sega doesn't. It's a buyer's market for Sega, but it is a seller's market if you have first-party Nintendo stuff, hardware or software. This even holds true for Wii U. So I sold back Bayonetta 2, one of our least favorite top 10 games of the year.
Right, but it was still a top 10 game of the year.
I got $30 from GameStop for it. And they, rob you blind.
So when I sold them back, The Last of Us, when the game had been out for 2 months and had been given Game of the Year by like everyone,
including us,
I got $27 for it. And that's only because I traded it in and I was getting extra credit because I used it to buy a console.
Okay, so a year and a half, full year after it came out, it's one of its contemporaries and runner for Game of the Year, Super Mario 3D World. I sold it back in January of 2015 for $29 to GameStop.
GameStop knows.
Well, obviously, because they can sell it. I mean, if anyone knows, they know. Nintendo, it holds its value. Part of it, I think, is because, no one buys this stuff, right? But
there is a limited market. That is definitely true.
But I think Nintendo fundamentally stays afloat in a way that Sega couldn't, because Nintendo makes some of the best games out there. Think of any generation of systems, and Nintendo games rank up there as some of the best. In the Wii, Xbox 360, PS3, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, or Mario Galaxy 2, and Wii Sports.
Those games are actually pretty fun.
Those are phenomenal. Runners, if not winners, for Game of the Year in their respective years. And then Wii Sports is Wii Sports, right? Think of the,
Wii Sports is like a cultural phenomenon.
Right. You look at, the GameCube has the weaker of the Nintendo lineups, but even it has Smash Brothers Melee, which I can still sell for $55 because it has inspired a fighting game community around a game that was never meant to do that. You can do this with each generation of system that Nintendo's been involved in, from the 8-bit, 16-bit, 32, 64, and then, the modern consoles. It's, never count out Nintendo. And this is,
and this also ties back into what we were talking about with the Vita. The fact that no matter what, it's not going to beat the 3DS.
Well, Sony has made the mistake both times of doing what I want, right? What I want is what Sony wants. And that is a TV console quality experience in your hand. That's what they do. That's what they always try to do, and they manage it. But no one except me wants that, apparently, because that is what I want. I loved playing Persona 4 Golden on my Vita.
You still have that, by the way?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I need it.
I kept it. I know that my save is now gone. That Chie and Rise and now to all of them are gone. That my save has been wiped, but even still, I love them. In a very deep and meaningful way. There's a game that came out end of last year called Persona Q for the 3DS, and it uses these same characters in a new game. And so I'm going to be buying that once alongside my new 3DS because I love them. So yeah, I didn't include that in what I sent you because it. I don't know what on earth I'm going to do with it. Frame it, I guess.
Buy a Vita TV.
Buy a Vita TV. Well, I'm not going to play it again. I don't have 87 hours. Yeah, I don't want to play it again because I want that one time to be it. I want the story I lived to be the story I lived. And I can't go back. I would make different decisions. It wouldn't be the same. I would know what would happen. I would understand what happens if you get 3 girlfriends. There's actually a punishment. I can't. To me...
And that it would effectively make you feel bad.
My one playthrough stands alone, and I can't go back to another playthrough. I've thought of, one of the reasons I was willing to get rid of my Vita is I'm never going to New Game Plus Persona 4 because I lived this complete story, and I got really invested in it.
Oh yeah.
It is to me.
It left a deep mark on your soul.
I think for me. I can't say objectively, but for me, it is one of the best games I've ever played, or one of the best gameplay experiences I've ever had. Ranked up there with Assassin's Creed 2, ranked up there with Tetris for the Game Boy.
Tetris.
Ranked up there with Ocarina. Now, is it mechanically as sound as Ocarina? No. Or as groundbreaking? Heck no. But that story is incredible in its depth. It is one of the most in-depth and sensical stories I've ever encountered, certainly from a Japanese game. It makes more sense than Assassin's Creed 2, which is borderline. And it's a JRPG, known for just utter nonsense. The current Final Fantasy series is like literally playing out Jesus and God. Like they have somehow JRPG'd Jesus and God. As a theologian, which is my other job, it blows me away.
One of your other jobs.
One of my other jobs. I'm a pastor, theologian in residence. I almost want to play it just to kind of what is their gloss on all of this. But, Persona 4, and that's why I'm so looking forward to Persona 5 whenever it comes out. I need that game. Because I can't go back to Persona 4, but I want them to do it to me again. I want them to just, for the dating sim aspect.
You need your same high.
I mean, it's not. I don't think it'll ever be this. Because I just heard about Persona 4, because the Giant Bomb guys did a endurance run where they played all the way through Persona 4, and I never watched the endurance run. It was before my time, but just hearing them talk about the endurance run, it's like I need to try this game, and then I did, and I fell in love with that story and with those characters. And in JRPGs, I always name the character after myself because I really try to play the player character in this place, apparently, as my high school self, with n plus something, 1 plus n too many girlfriends, which was somewhat of my high school experience. Yeah, so maybe I will send you that game. But on that note, we should probably get out of here.
Yeah, we probably should.
Games are too expensive. If you have any feedback for us about kind of your favorite game experiences, or why you also think that Persona 4 Golden or Persona 4, the original, deserve to be listed as some of the top games of all time, podcast at textlesscall.com, facebook.com/textlesscall, pinterest.com/textlesscall, or at textlesscall on the Twitters. Good night. And that game will change you. Changes the fiber of your being. You are different.
Okay, so you want to know what's ridiculous? Smash Brothers without tapes or anything? $47.
Melee? Yeah, Melee specifically. It's the fighting game people. That's why they want, pristine controllers they're going for so much, too.
Box only. $15.
It's a valuable piece of kit. And it's about to be yours.
It's something.